That's right. We've got to talk about this. What do we always say? Republicans don't understand who they're fighting, what they're up against. And this is just another example of it. An unbelievably wild, infuriating, dangerous, and seemingly all too predictable example of it. That's right. Look at this story coming out of the Biden administration and coming out of the Salem Witch Trial Committee, also known as the former January 6th Committee. You know, folks, whether you've paid taxes, opened a bank account, been accepted for a credit card, joined a gym, joined Costco, rented a car, rented a boat, or got your driver's license, applied for a mortgage, chances are you've been asked for and you've given out your Social Security number. This 9-digit code is a virtual key to a vast amount of private and often sensitive information about yourself, your address, your medical history, your shopping preferences, household income, use of prescription drugs, just to name a few. Everything's tied to your Social Security number. Well, I'll take things that didn't happen by accident for 200, please, Alex. It was discovered yesterday that the January 6th committee released a spreadsheet, quote, with nearly 2,000 full unredacted Social Security numbers associated with visitors to the White House in December of 2020. Who was the president back then? Oh, yeah, that's right. Including at least 3 members of President Trump's cabinet, GOP governors, and numerous Trump allies. Greg Abbott, Kristi Noem, Henry McMaster, and their families are just a few of the affected parties here. The January 6th committee failed to redact those numbers from a spreadsheet released to the public as part of its final bogus report on the so-called January 6th riot. Not only did they have their Social Security numbers exposed, these people, but no one even warned them, either before or after the release. Now, there are so many questions here. But of course, the first question should be, why were the only ones having their Social Security numbers revealed Republicans? Now, if you're like most people, you've probably given out your Social Security number several times, maybe even in the past few weeks. It's such a convenient form of identification, you probably don't think twice about it, but you probably should. By revealing our Social Security numbers to so many entities, governmental and private organizations alike, we're sacrificing our right to privacy and anonymity. And in an information society like the one we live in, these are increasingly rare commodities. It's become way too easy for government agencies, private organizations, businesses to trace each of us, everything we do, from cradle to grave. If Republicans released documents with 2,000 American Social Security numbers that included prominent Democrat politicians, the media would call it the biggest scandal of all time. You'd have wall-to-wall coverage of it. This story dropped yesterday, and I feel like we haven't even heard about it. Now, just think what these people are going to now have to deal with. Fraud, improper prying, possible identity theft, criminals now able to assume their identities in order to gain access to their victims' bank accounts, charge accounts, steal their victims' government benefits. Who knows what's on the table? Now, the National Archives, which supplied those records to the January 6th committee under subpoena, told the Washington Post that they never thought the committee would be stupid enough to release them unredacted. The National Archives appeared to cast some blame on the January 6th committee. The Archives Public and Media Communications Office told the Washington Post in a statement that, quote, while we took affirmative steps to redact personally identifiable information, we did not expect that the committee would publicly release records that still may have contained publicly identifiable information. The statement added that the Post's request for comment was the first we have heard of a potential inadvertent release of personally identifiable information, in that we are assessing the situation and any necessary steps to address an inadvertent release. Folks, I've said it a million times and I'll continue to say it. If the Republicans are not sure who they're up against in this fight, the left have proven over and over that they are the real threat to democracy. Whether they're publicly releasing the tax returns of a former president, whether they're raiding his home, whether they're putting out the tax returns of private citizens, whether they're now releasing Social Security numbers of thousands of their political opponents, there is no bar low enough for them to meet. This is an amazing story, one that I feel bad for these people who their numbers were released. They're now going to probably have to take protection for their Social Security numbers, some kind of LifeLock, something like that for probably the rest of their lives, their kids, their spouses, their friends. Who knows how many people were affected? 2,000 full Social Security numbers released. And I don't even think you hear about this story in the media. It's an amazing, unbelievably wild, infuriating, but like I said, somehow all too predictable story of these people on the January 6th committee who really know no lows. They know no lows. There's not low enough they can go. And that, unfortunately, is the truth of the story. So we will follow this story. Governor Noem has put out from her attorneys a letter demanding answers, demanding to get to the bottom of it. I hope she does. I hope anybody found liable on the January 6th committee for this release is held liable in any way possible. You know, the laws around these things are very, very gray thanks to actually government itself. So we'll see what remedies they have available to them, but we will follow this story. But please make sure to share this story so people know about it, because I haven't even heard about this story breaking in the mainstream media at all on mainstream television and or on radio. So let's spread the word and get this story out there. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, this video is brought to you by our sponsor, Mike Lindell, MyPillow, MyPillow.com. And I'll see you in the next one.